Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining Thrive Holistic Veterinary Care's webinar. If you missed it earlier this last week when it was live, now you have an opportunity to watch it at your leisure. I'm Dr. Sue Howell from Thrive Holistic Veterinary Care, and I am a certified veterinary food therapist. What we're going to talk about for the next half hour is how you can have some fun with food with your pets as you're at home, thinking about how to optimize their health. So we're talking about food because food fuels cells, and it programs your pet's body for health or non-health depending upon what you feed them. So pets eat every day, and that's why it's important to know that feeding them can be the most influential thing you do to affect their health. First, let's think about our own health and what we're eating, because that can have a lot to do with how our pets eat as well. What does our refrigerator say about us? So this is a photography experiment done by a professional photographer named Mark Menjivar. And he, in 2013, went around to a bunch of people's houses and took pictures of their fridges. And he went back several years later and took pictures of the same fridge to see the comparison. So this fridge that we're looking at on the left is a refrigerator from a bartender in San Antonio, Texas. He lives alone and he is on third shift. So he lives sort of the opposite lifestyle of a lot of us. He gets up at 4 p.m. and he goes to bed at 8 a.m. So you can see what his fridge looks like. While they were filming this photography exposition, the film crew said this guy's refrigerator smelled so bad that they had to shut the door 3 times just to get the picture. So you can imagine. Well, look what happened 4 years later when they went back to the same guy's refrigerator. He still got that flag up in the left-hand corner of his fridge, but look how it's changed. And this gentleman was very overweight, about 100 pounds overweight in the original picture, but now he's lost that 100 pounds, and you can see how his fridge has changed. So he's got a lot more fresh food here. He's got vegetables, and he's completely changed his eating habits. It's pretty amazing. This can happen with our pets too. So if you imagine that this is your pet's refrigerator and your pet's food looks like the food on the left, what would happen to your pet if they were to move their refrigerator more towards the picture on the right? Well, let's find out. We'll start with some myths and some facts about feeding your pet. So fact or myth? Grain-free dry diets are better than grain-based dry diets. Is that a fact or is that a myth? All right, it's a myth. Really, grain-based diets can be very healthy for your pets, and grain-free diets can be unhealthy, but point being the word dry. So dry food, regardless of what kind of ingredients are there, can be the most inflammatory diets available to your pet. It's for 3 reasons. Because first off, it's high heat processed. There's a lot of heat applied to this food, and so it loses a lot of vital nutrients and enzymes that were there originally in the original food to help your pet digest its meal. When you high heat process food too, you take proteins and you stick them together with sugars or carbohydrates. And that changes the protein molecule. So when it goes into your pet's body, it's not going to fit into the receptor sites properly. So that causes inflammation. Whole body wise, it can happen in the joints, it can happen in the digestive tract, it can happen in the skin. And it also can create byproducts that advance aging and accelerate the aging of your pet. So that's one of the reasons why dry diets are tough, high heat processing. Second, they lack moisture. So you think about in nature, animals were meant to eat about 85% moisture in their diet, but when we eat these dry diets, they're only about 15% moisture. It's like if you had dry cereal for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day of your life. You're going to be missing the moisture content. And that's really true with cats, especially because they have no thirst drive. So they're not really, or a very small thirst drive compared to dogs. They're not going to go and seek out water like your dog does. They need to get it from their meal. So moisture is super important. It's not present in a dry diet. And lastly, these dry diets are too high in carbohydrates. in order to make a dry diet, you need to have a certain amount of carbs to stick everything together. And it's like 30% minimal carbohydrate load. But dogs and cats weren't meant to handle that much carbohydrates. That's about 5 times more carbs than what dogs were intended by nature to eat, and about 10 to 20 times the amount of carbs that cats were meant by nature to eat. So we get problems with that, and it can change how their digestion works. It can change how their microbes survive. In fact, you can get an overgrowth of unhealthy bacteria in the digestive tract, an overgrowth of bad bacteria when your dog or cat is eating a high carbohydrate diet. So I encourage my clients to move away from 100% dry diets and onto adding some other things fresh into their pet's food. But then we come across this factor myth that you should never change your pet's diet, especially if they have a sensitive stomach. Is that true, or is that false? Is that fact, or is that myth? Well, it's actually a myth. Variety in your pet's diet is going to decrease obesity, and it's going to improve their digestion. The more times they get variety, the more tools their body has to work with. So if they're eating the same thing day after day, week after week, year after year, they only have a limited amount of capacity. Their cells don't have as much option to function as an animal or a person who's eating multiple different things. But you think when you introduce new things to your pet's diet and they get diarrhea, that's not an indication that they can't handle that food. It's an indication that they just haven't had enough variety to be able to understand how to digest that completely. So you have to do it in slow amounts and over time, and change your pet's food over maybe a week's period of time to help them adjust. And the more times you do this, the easier it's going to be for them to be able to see new things in their food. So variety, 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 super important. Cats who eat variety actually are more satiated than cats that don't. And cats like variety in studies that have been done. There's one particular study that lets us know that they do prefer variety. Digestion improves when you have variety because those microbes in the gut have more tools to work with. So instead of bad bacteria growing, you have good beneficial bacteria. So don't let your pet eat the same thing every day, 24/7. We're going to need to rethink that paradigm. So third factor myth, never feed people food to your pet because it will make them sick. Is that a fact or is that a myth? Well, I learned in vet school that that can be a fact, but unfortunately, what a lot of veterinarians are taught in that regard isn't true. Certain fresh foods can absolutely be healthy for your pet. And if they're eating healthy fresh food as 20% of their diet, it can improve their immune system function, their digestion, and their overall health. We can look at a study that was done in 2005 by Purdue University, and it was done on Scottish Terriers. So these little guys that were either prone or had bladder cancer. So interesting, a group of dogs was fed strictly dry diet, and another group of dogs was fed dry diet, but they also had some green or yellow vegetables added to their food 3 times or more a week. And it was only a small amount, not a lot, maybe a tablespoon. So this is what the study found, that dogs that ate leafy green vegetables like broccoli had reduced risk of bladder cancer by about 90%. And the dogs that consumed yellow or orange vegetables like sweet potatoes or carrots had a reduced risk of bladder cancer by about 70%. And that was only with a small amount of those fresh vegetables on their food a few times a week. So it can be very significant. Other studies on dogs, there was one in a Helsinki study where they fed kibble to dogs and found that inflammatory markers in their blood went up. But when they stopped feeding kibble and started feeding other fresh food, raw bones, meat, organ meat, the inflammation markers went down. So it's important for your pet to get fresh unprocessed food because it contains so much more nutrition than a processed food diet. I hope that answered some questions for you, because now we're going to go into having fun with putting some of these fresh foods into your pet's diet. And a lot of the fun can come from a Chinese medicine perspective in something they call food therapy. So this is actually fitting the foods to your pet's own individual pattern. And a lot of feeding can have to do with balancing your pet's body. So if your pet is hot, you might want to cool them off in order to help them balance. If they're too cold, they need to warm up. It's like us. If we are eating, if it's hot outside, do you want to go get something really super hot to drink or to eat? Probably not. You're going to go over more towards cooler things. And the opposite's true in the winter, right? It's cold out. We gravitate towards more warming comfort foods in the winter. So if you have a dog that looks like the one on the top left, they're young, they've got a red tongue, they're panting, their skin might be inflamed and itchy and smelly. They really are looking for coolness when they lay down and rest, and they get worse in the warm weather. Well, you know that your dog is running hot, and this is something to look for with your own pet. If you have a more cold dog, they might be older, they might have a paler tongue like this dog in the lower left picture. You might feel them and their ears might be cold or their back might be cold, and they might be more heat-seeking. Even in the summer when it's hot, they might be wanting to go and lay in the sun. These dogs can be stiff and slow, arthritic, and they can be way worse in cold weather. So take a look at your own pet and see if you can decide by just looking at some of these parameters. Is their tongue red? Is it hot looking, or is it pale and cool? How do they feel? When you touch them, are they hot or are they cool? Are they heat seeking or cool seeking? Because when you figure that out, and you might need some help from someone like myself to do that, but you can do it on your own. You can look at the foods to feed them that's going to help balance those temperatures and make them feel better. So we have cool food for warm pets and warm food for cold pets. And that goes for temperature of the food. If your pet's a cold pet, you might want to warm the food up before you feed it to them. If they're a hot pet, you might want to feed it cooler. But we're also talking about the energies that these foods have. All food has different energies, and we can look at proteins that have different energies that can either warm your pet or cool them. So if your pet is running hot, you might want to feed them a more cooling food, which is closer to a less processed diet and more towards a fresh diet, even raw, because raw is cool. Proteins like duck, rabbit, whitefish, turkey, those are cooling foods, and they can help balance out your hot, itchy pet. However, if your pet is really cold, they might do well with warming foods. Something that is going to be more like chicken or lamb or venison. Those are warming foods. And then the neutral foods are beef, pork, and salmon. And home cooking is actually a neutral way of temperature for food, something that's cooked or home prepared, something at room temperature. And as you'll see, hot food, the most hot food you can feed your pet is a processed food diet. So if you've got a dog that's itchy and scratchy and red and cool seeking, the worst thing you can probably do is feed them that processed food dry diet. We can also help pets that have different conditions going on by feeding them foods that help balance out their body and help them deal with some of their issues. So tummy troubles is one of the big things that happen to us with our pets at home, and it usually happens on a weekend, right, when your vet's not available. So here are some things you can do from a Chinese medicine perspective to help your pet when they have digestive issues like vomiting, diarrhea, constipation. And that is generally feeding foods that are easy to digest and that are yellow. Yellow foods can help digestion. Does anyone have a yellow dog, like a yellow lab? Well, the Chinese would say balance them with yellow foods. So we've got things like pumpkin, or squash, yellow squash. There's fiber in these foods too, which help with digestion, but the yellow color is also full of beta carotene and some of these other vitamins that are helpful to the body. You can look at the lower left corner and you can see a yam or a sweet potato. Those are also awesome for digestion, and they can be used to support the liver. They can be used to support your immune system, the dog's immune system, and just overall health. When we're thinking about diarrhea, we also think about a protein to add to their food, and chicken or turkey, think of those as more yellow meats, are going to be more soothing to digestion. And if you're looking at your pet from a hot or cold perspective, you can say, well, if they're really got nasty, smelly diarrhea, I'm probably going to feed them something cooler, which is turkey. If they have really liquidy diarrhea that doesn't smell bad but and has no color to it, you might choose chicken because it's more warming. And that other type of diarrhea that doesn't smell or have any color to it can be more of a cold situation. So those are some fun ways to look at feeding your pet when they have tummy troubles. And then we look at itchy and scratchy dogs. In Chinese medicine, you would pick something green to feed them. And we're headed into that time of year where we've got a lot of environmental challenges. So itchy and scratchy can be a big deal right now. When you're feeding any of these vegetables and your dog's not used to them, and you're trying to get them into eating some fresh stuff like this, I lightly cook it. So I just chop it up really fine and lightly cook it in a little bit of water or just a little bit of coconut oil or olive oil, butter even, just to get the flavor there and to lightly cook it so that they're more interested and it digests more easily. So green foods that are and organic would be great too, so we avoid pesticides. From a Chinese medicine perspective, I mean, you think green and cool at the same time. Green is cooling, it can calm itch and inflammation, and it supports the element called wood in Chinese medicine, which is related to the liver. And these foods can protect even against toxins that your pet comes across in the environment. Asparagus especially has been studied in people to alleviate alcohol hangovers because it really does protect liver cells against toxins. And you think about how it feels to crunch into a piece of celery. That's nice and cool and refreshing, and that's what it's going to do for your pet too. It's going to add some coolness. So these foods can be given as toppers on top of your pet's food several times a week to improve their just overall health as well. So those are a few things that can happen when you use fresh food to help balance out your pet. And we want to use variety and freshness to help them get their groove back. What you're seeing here on the screen is just a list of things that can happen to your pet as they start to get fresh food into their diet. And this comes from Dr. Justin Schmalberg, who is a certified, well, not certified, he's a board certified veterinary nutritionist. And he owns a company called Nom Nom Now, where they actually make food and send it to your pet that's made specifically for them. So this is what he wants people to see and what they are seeing when pets are eating fresh. And I can say that this is happening in my practice with my pet patients too. As fresh food gets introduced, up to 20% of their diet even. So a fifth of their meal can be fresh, and you're not going to imbalance an already complete and balanced base diet. Even if it's a dry diet, you can add some of these foods on top to help increase the moisture and get them fresh. So week one after adding some of these foods, they're going to get more excitement at meal times. I mean, dogs should be excited about their food. If they just look at it and walk away, you know, that means there's something up with that, and that there's something there that's not agreeing with them. If you can get even an egg onto their food, eggs are awesome. They're balancing. They're going to help. If you add them in a few times a week, your pet's going to be more interested in their food. So you'll get more energy from your pet as well in week one. If you're 2 weeks into adding some fresh food to your dog's diet, you're going to get smaller poops. That's a bonus, and better breath. And 1 month in, what we see with pets that eat fresh food with their diet, softer, silkier coats, less shedding. And I can tell you this happens frequently. I have a cat named Lillian, my own cat. Her hair coat was getting really rough. She's a 14-year-old cat. She's had some rough times in the past couple years, but she has done so much better when I put fresh chicken or chicken liver, cooked livers on top of her food. Her hair coat became beautiful and shiny and silky again. And that's a testament to the diet. Better digestion, better nutrient absorptions, better ingredients, and better freshness. 3 months in, you're going to get better weight and more stamina, so they'll be able to run and play and not get as tired. And after 9 months on eating some fresh food, you're going to see the vet less frequently. And I can say that happens even earlier in my practice. The vet visits drop down because your pet is so much healthier. That's what we're going for, is happy, healthy pets. So this type of work, you can do it at home, you can have fun with it. And remember, I mean, if your pet has got special health considerations, it's a very good idea to talk to your veterinarian about some of the fresh foods that would be appropriate for them or not, as the case may be. And if your pet's overall generally healthy and you're just trying to improve their overall life and prolong their lifespan, then it's easy to work some of these things in. So that's what I have to say about fresh feeding, and we encourage it because real food is real healthy. And if you want to know more, you can come to our website. We're going to be posting a lot of these webinars, and we've got a couple there right now. You can go to Chi Dog's website and learn from their instructional videos on how to put together some fresh food to top your food with. And you can also go to Nom Nom Now and learn more from Dr. Schmalberg. So thanks a lot for joining us. And again, I'm Dr. Sue Howell, and we're just happy to be here to help your pet thrive.